Hello and welcome to today's video of our Travel Trader series. It's day number 61 and I want to talk a little bit about market outlook since we dropped a whole lot last week. Some people are a bit scared because markets dropped down that fast. Other people are a little bit excited because they knew in advance that it will go down and now they hope that they can double their money again and again. So actually I want to give you my view on what I think will happen next, so you can be prepared for whatever you're thinking about. So if you have a look at what happened, basically we realized that we had a coronavirus going on in China, and therefore in many manufacturing plants they extended some holidays. And they kept on extending, and the first reaction of the market was, okay, we have some incident here, so we go down. That's alright, that's exactly what should happen, because these things would influence what you're doing, what the company does in their earnings and revenues, so it's perfectly alright that the markets come down. What then happened is that for some reason, and we pretty much know the reason, but let's just say the market kept ignoring these things and the market soared up to new higher highs. And that's when I said people obviously are not aware of what's going on, what the impact will be, because although the virus spread more and more throughout China, the basic thing about it from an economic perspective is that the manufacturing plant remained closed. So there was no manufacturing going on in many of these provinces, and it spread throughout Asia. We had similar things in South Korea or Japan, due to that all these manufacturing processes are highly integrated, and they have a supply chain where they need things from one factory or another. It had a big influence on many manufacturing companies, and the market completely ignored it, so we went higher and higher, and that's exactly why we had that huge drop. If they would have realized, okay, it's something serious, we might have some dents in revenue and global growth might go down, everything would be alright, it would have dropped a little bit further, but we wouldn't have gone higher. So you can pretty much see it here. This is end of January where it began. We went down a little bit, and when it went up to new higher highs, completely ignored it. And then they suddenly realized, hey, that virus is still there, and the companies, more and more companies were reporting their numbers, and therefore people started to realize that now it's serious and these things would happen. We knew it pretty much in advance, or when it happened, and we knew that that drop would happen. Our indicators told us that we will go down. That drastically is kind of a bonus for us, because it made more money than it usually would, but we were able to predict these things. Now we are at a situation where we had a week going down. I already told people on Thursday that I expect Friday will be an upwards day, and not in the morning when the European markets open, but latest when the US markets open, they will go up. And there were several reasons. First of all, it's something that I will explain in another weekend video. We had something like strong support levels in pretty much all the big indices. So we dropped from very high point, we went down, and when we found some support, the people thought for some reason that we will discover together, that now everything is quite cheap, so to speak. So now it makes sense to buy again, and that's exactly where we stopped, and where we had that reversal and then upwards again. And that's pretty much the same in all of these markets. It doesn't matter if you look at S&P behind me, Dow Jones, DAX, other European indices, they pretty much all look very similar, and they all kind of did the same. So First of all, one of the reasons is when you're making a lot of money going down, then at the end of the week you want to get out of it, you want to pocket some money in, and that's another reason why at the end of the week many people will leave their positions. That means they have to buy something back, and therefore price will go up as well. If you have a look at the current situation, what we will realize is that numbers of new infections actually are going down. So it seems that we reached the peak point in China and we are now coming down again, which is good news. We could discuss whether this coronavirus is worse than the normal flu, or if the flu is killing more people whatsoever. But that's not really important. What's important is in terms of economic numbers, that now more and more factories in China start to work again. So more people come back to their jobs, be extended and overextended and again extended. Holidays for the Chinese New Year, they are actually over, and people now start to produce more goods again, and it will take a little while until we are, let's say, back to normal. But what happens right now is that more and more things will be produced, and that they will be able to feed the supply chain again, and that other companies will start producing again, and they will typically what you can do is, as soon as you get enough material, you will do some extended work hours, and then you can produce more than you actually would have been in that time. So they will catch up a little bit. We will see that we have a dent in economic growth, especially in China, also in the world, because like goods that were not produced cannot be sold. If they cannot be sold, there's no revenue generated, there's no earnings coming in, and so on and so forth. So we will see a dent, but if you think about it, that's 10-point-something% drop. It's not that everything is 10% worth less, or that 10% of whatever would be produced in the world actually is completely gone. So we see one of the typical overreactions when something happens, let's say unexpectedly. So everything drops down, and now all the shares in these indices are like 10, 11, 12% less worth than they were before. And obviously, we didn't lose 10% of all goods and services produced worldwide through that coronavirus. So we now can expect that we are at a level where we actually are cheap again. And that's the reason, one of the reasons, why I think that next week will go slightly up again. When people start to realize that actually the coronavirus will be over very, very soon, latest when April arrives and the flu season is over, latest then everything is back to normal, but most likely far earlier. And that's another reason. It's like a temporary effect that the weather will kind of deal with, and then things will be back to normal. Also, as we are at quite some cheap levels at the moment, the likelihood that we correct again is quite big. What we have to deal with is that we have a very high volatility in the market, and as we are in panic mode, since we dropped that much, we will have to be aware of that higher volatility. So we need to get in whatever direction we're trading, we need to give it more room, because the spikes up and down will be big, let's say at least for the next 1 or 2 weeks. So as long as people are insecure what's going on, what's happening, what the effects will be, we will have that high volatility, so prices going up and down way more than normal, which is great for us as traders, because if we wouldn't have any price movements, we couldn't make any money. But we need to be aware that we are able to deal with that volatility, and that's the reason why I mentioned it. So when you are entering the markets, whatever direction, you should have a good idea of what happens and and you should listen to your indicators that tell you that they are either going up or down, and then you should follow these indicators and get into the right swing. If you are in a short position currently, likelihood that you will get out next week, in my opinion, is pretty high. I wouldn't go long on Monday because we still have these kind of uncertainty, and with every news bit that comes in or out, we will see the market react, sometimes as recently in a very irrational way. From what I saw, what I read, I think yesterday, is that the first governments are talking about that they potentially might take some money and stimulate the economy to compensate these effects, and this would be good news, and that would kind of help to stabilize prices and go up. And if you think about it, the reason why I didn't go long in the markets on Friday, although I was very, very sure that we would have higher prices, which we eventually had, is that we can still have some nasty downward days, and I don't want to be in that and get surprised by these things. And that's why I rather traded that volatility index, because whatever happens, we won't drop that drastically for another 2-3 weeks. That's not going to happen, and we are likely to go upwards, but I want to have something what I call a confirmation. I don't want to see a single candle or a single anything that tells me we might go up. I want to be sure that we go up, and when exactly we are going up. I'm very sure that we are going up, but I want to know, okay, what's the right or good entry point to ride that wave up again, and that's simply a signal that I didn't get yet. Yeah, so that's my view on the market over the next week. Likelihood that we go up and see higher prices, in my opinion, is very, very high. If you're short in the markets, get prepared that you at least secure most of your earnings. Some earnings were really, really phenomenal. And otherwise, wait for some confirmation and wait until you see that the market really turns before you enter into a long position. And in this, let's say, extreme scenario, it would help to not necessarily listen to all the news that are coming in, but if you sort through news, if you go through information, have a look at what's really happening in terms of production. Are these manufacturing plants coming back? Are there any governments setting up programs to stimulate the economy? These are the things that will help the market, and not so much the let's say media that is talking about different kind of masks and coronavirus and outbreaks, and that you have like 3 more cases in the UK or whatever country. So I wouldn't get all crazy watching news, but if you sort through some of that information, make sure that you have a look at everything that is related to manufacturing or production getting into normal stages, because that's eventually that will produce goods, and these goods then will be sold and will generate revenue and earnings, and therefore the companies doing that will earn money. So thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions about it, please let me know in the comment section. Otherwise, I wish you a great evening, and tomorrow I fly out to Austria for the first part of my speaking tour, and I'm looking forward to see as many people as possible of you. And yeah, have a good evening, good night, and goodbye.